Dean, welcome. Dean is joining us from Keyless. Dean, the stage is yours, and don't worry, we're not going to eat into your allotted demo time because we're running a few minutes behind, so leave that to us to make it up on the interstitials between sessions.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the introduction, Cameron. So I'm going to dive straight into a demo today. Before I start actually leading the demo, I'm going to provide a little bit of an introduction to myself and also to Keyless. So let's get the technical aspects out of the way. I'm going to share my screen, and it's important to show you a little bit of a behind the scenes look. Obviously, we're talking about the topic of deep fakes today, right? So the software that I'm using for the demo today is actually what's typically used by fraudsters to orchestrate these style of deepfake attacks, an injection attack. So with OBS Studio, where I'm going to be showing my demo, you can actually create virtual webcam feeds, and you can feed in AI-generated imagery or even real imagery that you've pulled off social media profiles for a given user. But I just wanted to share that with you. Obviously, it's hyper relevant in the context of today's conversation, but also it emphasizes that the demo I'm going to be sharing with you is completely live. So I got the feedback the other day. I was doing a bit of a run through, and someone said, oh, okay, that's a great demo video, but aren't you going to show something live? So I just wanted to point out that everything you're seeing today is live, and I'm going to walk you through what we do in the context of a live demo, but really crucially talk about deepfakes. So let's start with introductions. My name's Dean Stevenson. I'm Director of Pre-Sales here at Keyless. Now, a little bit about Keyless. Keyless is a privacy-preserving biometric authentication vendor. What we do is we authenticate users in a digital context using their facial biometrics, but we do so in a novel way without storing any biometric data anywhere. So we don't store it on our servers, and we don't store it on the device. So we help organizations overcome all of the privacy concerns that come with implementing a facial biometric authentication solution. Because naturally, when you talk about that, people go, well, I don't want this central honeypot of data to exist, in my environment or on your SaaS platform. So that's why we do what we do here at Keyless. And really importantly for today's conversation is the topic of deepfakes. As a facial biometric authentication vendor, I am asked about deepfakes almost on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day, because authentication is essentially the keys to your front door, how you get in. But importantly for Keyless, we're often used as the authenticator of last resort, the highest possible assurance you can get when you want to authenticate a user. So we're used in situations where a user might be making a payment. They might be trying to recover access to a device that they've lost. So they've lost their phone, they've got no credentials, and they want to gain access to their bank account again. Well, how do you reestablish trust in a situation where the user's lost all their credentials? Well, the answer is simple. You open the camera, you take a quick snapshot of the user, and you authenticate them against a previously enrolled zero-knowledge biometric template. And then you can be absolutely sure that that user is who they're claiming to be. But all of that falls away if all of these defenses can be undermined by deepfakes or injection attacks in general. So obviously, in a situation where you require true proof of presence, the threat of deepfakes is something at the top of everyone's mind at the moment. And the way I'd like to approach today's conversation is really walking you through a demo of some use cases from a consumer banking context, because that's where we get a lot of interest. And also that's where the questions about deepfakes come up, because these services are exposed externally to millions of people as customers, but potentially billions of people that have access to the internet can perform these types of attacks against those services as well. So I'd like to start. I'll walk you through a few use cases, and then we'll talk about step by step the controls that we're implementing against these style of attacks. So what I've got here on the screen here is a mobile banking application. So this is just a mock mobile banking application, but it embeds the Keyless SDK, which is ultimately what's going to harden this app. So at the very first instance, it's hardening the app against injection attacks. So at the time when the app is starting up and the Keyless SDK is initialized, we're looking for things like, is the app being run in an emulator or a debugger? Is it running on a rooted or jailbroken device? We consider these insecure configurations because they tend to lend themselves to situations that make it easier to orchestrate an injection attack using synthetic generated imagery. So that's one of the controls we're immediately applying straight off the bat. Then additionally, I'm going to sign up as a new user here. And it's worth pointing out that we come after the IDV process. So we're an authentication solution. So we take the output from the IDV vendors that are already in play. I know we're accompanied by a few of those on the call today. And we use that to credential the user passively. So we can take a selfie of the user and we can credential the user behind the scenes silently. So when the user goes to finally sign up for their digital services, with one look into the camera, we perform passive liveness detection that embeds all of our deepfake protection controls. So with one look in the camera, passively, without any requirement for challenge response, no look left, no look right, no talking, or anything of that kind, we're able to establish if that user is really there in front of the camera. And this applies for both presentation attacks and injection attacks. So we're able to do that. And of course, I'll repeat that. So I'm going to go through that re-enrollment. And what you can see there, we're applying the passive liveness detection again. So we're applying all of those controls there, and we're checking that the imagery we're receiving, so the stream of images that we're receiving is legitimate. So we're checking for hallmarks of the AI-generated imagery. We're checking for subtle changes in light. We're looking for the transition between the various frames. So we're doing all of those checks on the actual image stream itself. Now, really importantly, what we've also done there at the time of enrollment is we've cryptographically bound the device. So we have now created a key pair on the device that can be used to authenticate the user as a second factor of authentication. So we have the biometric that typically is pre-credentialed with a selfie, or the user can enroll themselves. And then we also have the device-based authentication. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up at the moment is because it's a really, really robust prevention mechanism for these style of deepfake attacks, because it makes a deepfake attack or an injection attack infinitely more complex, because not only do you need to compromise the biometric of the user and generate some AI or synthetic imagery and inject that into the application, by cryptographically binding the device, you also need to compromise the device of the user as well. So once we've gone through the enrollment process, that device is bound to the user, and we're able to detect when that device is bound to the user, and we log in, and every authentication going forward is multi-factor authentication. So that login workflow, we've got the biometric and we've got the possession factor as well. So for attackers, it just makes it significantly more difficult, on top of all the protections that we're applying to analyze the video stream and the inputs that we're receiving there, and on top of all the detection measures that we're applying to the actual application protection itself as well. Now, as I go through as a user, let's say I'd like to transfer Charlie some money, and it's a relatively low amount, so that goes through without any issues. But let's say I would like to transfer $10,000 to Charlie. Again, the keyless SDK opens. With one look into the camera, we do that multi-factor authentication. Now, another protection mechanism that we're implementing is the behavioral biometric element. So again, all of these things are happening behind the scenes. That's why I think it's important to talk about them in the context of these use cases. So as the user interacts with the device, we're naturally getting readings from things like the accelerometer, the gyroscope, the barometer, the ambient light sensor, sensors that are freely available to native applications installed on mobile devices. Now, that gives you the additional advantage of being able to inspect not only the video feed that's incoming, you can also correlate that with the sensor readings that you're retrieving from the device. So not only do you look at how's the camera moving during the liveness detection, you can then cross-reference that between readings from the accelerometer, for example. So for every move of the camera, you would expect the opposite movement from the accelerometer, and you can cross-reference those sorts of things. So again, another layer of defense. And I think the key message here is when it comes to detecting and protecting against deepfakes, there's no silver bullet, right? It's an arms race. So if we're just applying one control in order to protect against these style of attacks, it just sort of moves the goalpost slightly, and that will become the target, and then soon enough that will be circumvented. So it's about applying this layered approach. Now, finally, one more use case before I conclude, and I know I started a little bit later, so I'll just take a couple more minutes on this. So one of the use cases we're commonly used is in the situation of device or account recovery. So what happens if on the left-hand side, the phone that I've just enrolled in, I've lost? Well, in that situation, what we can do is we can actually re-enroll, so we can recover the device. So if you bear with me one moment, I'm just going to reshare this device. So the screen share slightly stopped there, so I'm just going to reshare that. But once I've got that device shared, then we can share with you what the device recovery use case will look like. So I'm just going to mirror my phone screen here, and we're going to share my iPhone. There we go. And hopefully this is just testament to, in a live demo, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So I'm just gonna bring this up on my screen again, and I'm going to share with you here the other use case. So hopefully now you can see that screen. So going back to the use case, I'm going to restore access to my account. So I've lost the device on the left-hand side. I'm now restoring access on a new device. Now, in this case, some of the controls that we naturally apply aren't present. So the cryptographic device key pair that we typically use to authenticate the user isn't there. Therefore, we're able to augment that with another layer of authentication. In this example, we're just using a PIN. Let's call it a recovery factor, but you could really use any factor. We'll let the bank know that this is an untrusted device, and they can layer in additional controls as they see fit. But we are still applying all of those application security controls. We're applying all of the image and stream analysis controls. We're applying the controls around the behavioral biometrics as well. So I just wanted to share with you, literally just pure demos today, just sharing with you some of the keyless use cases, sharing with you in terms of the talk track, the controls that we're applying specifically around deepfakes. So I think that brings us in roughly on time, hopefully. I will just open it up to any questions or comments at that point.
Awesome, Dean. That was great. We just got a question come in if your phone got lost, but that last demo clearly took care of that. So that was super helpful. One question that I want to ask you is, how does your company monitor the emerging trends around deepfake detection? As we've heard a couple times already now, this is moving at light speed. So how do you stay ahead, or at least close enough to where this is headed?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. And, I think we have an obligation to stay ahead of these threats. Our solution is trusted by, some of the largest banks in Europe and across the world. So this is an area that we take very seriously. We have a roadmap dedicated just to these topics, and obviously we could talk about that as a dedicated session. But yeah, we are actively monitoring the landscape. We're looking for the emerging threats and developing controls to mitigate those threats proactively. But additionally, we've designed the solution from the ground up to be layered, so that as something new comes up in one area, the other controls are designed to help and mitigate against those threats, to give us the breathing space to be able to respond proactively.
Love it. Well, thank you again, and our appreciation from the team for really bringing those live demo goods.